Tobacco is a plant that grows natively in North and South America. It is in the same family as the potato, pepper, and poisonous nightshade. 1 ounce of tobacco can have up to 300,000 seeds. As early as 1 BC, tobacco has been grown in many different ways, and American Indians began using it for religious purposes and medicinal ways, and all of these different ways. For example, they would use it to dress up all wounds, and they would chew it when they had toothaches or as a painkiller. So tobacco was really believed to be the cure-all type of drug. You know, they used it as medicine. They really did think that this would help them feel better.
So in the Nicotiana plant, there's 2 species that are very important. The first one is the Nicotiana rustica, and was very popular in South America and known as mapacho, and in Vietnam that it was known as tao lao. This species, it contained up to 9 times more nicotine than the common Nicotiana tabacum, that is the other one. And the Nicotiana tabacum is the one that we use today, that it has less nicotine, and we use it to make tobacco. When Christopher Columbus came to America, he was offered dried tobacco leaves as a gift from the American Indians that he encountered. Soon after, sailors brought tobacco back to Europe, and the plant was being grown all over Europe. The main reason for tobacco's growing popularity in Europe was its supposed healing properties. Europeans believed that tobacco could cure almost anything, from bad breath to cancer. Seriously, cancer.
In 1776, during the American Revolutionary War, tobacco definitely peaked because it helped finance by serving as a collateral for all the loans that the Americans had to do from France during this wartime. So tobacco really was being, thrown out by the government to help it make publicity and gain money so that they could pay the war that they were doing. Over the years, more and more scientists began to understand the chemicals and the composition of what was in tobacco. So about in 1826, the pure form of nicotine was found, along with some research that proved that nicotine wasn't really good, that it was poisonous. So, this is when we really start getting into the health effects, the bad and negative health effects that tobacco had and smoking had. And this is where, it all began. So by 1836, many people started making statements about this. One of them was Samuel Green, who said that nicotine was basically poison and that could kill a man, and that was insecticide. In 1847, Philip Morris, which is really famous cigarette company, releases the first hand-rolled cigarettes for sale, which were Turkish hand-rolled cigarettes. So soon after that, in 1849, the G.E. Liggett and Brother is established in San Luis. So we have, all of these companies now settling. However, in the United States, cigarettes were mostly made out of extra tobacco that was left off from other tobacco products, especially chewing tobacco, which was incredibly popular in the cowboy era, because you can see all the cowboys, they're chewing their tobacco, they spit it out, and this was what was popular to do, not smoking it. Until this big company started to do hand-rolled cigarettes for sale, and this is when cigarettes finally became famous in a smokable form.
Before the 1847, the tobacco was only consumed in pipes. It was until 1848 that the first cigarettes were made. Then it became very popular between the soldiers in Ukraine, Russia, and the US.
Tobacco is cultivated as many other agricultural products. But in 1876, a flea beetle attack caused half of the destruction of the tobacco crops. But after successful experiments in the 1890s, they determined that by just placing a thin cotton gin on top of the crops, this protect them from any other flea beetles. Today, in the United States, they fertilize tobacco crops with a mineral called apatite. This makes a better flavor for the tobacco crops.
Nicotine is a highly potent poison that have been used in agriculture insecticide. Nicotine is so dangerous that 40% of the farm workers who harvest tobacco contract a severe case of what is known as green tobacco sickness. In addition to nicotine, many ingredients in tobacco itself are also toxic. For example, are at least 4,000 chemicals in cigarette smoke, 2,000 of which are poisonous and over 40 of which are verified to be carcinogenic. As you can see in the screen right now, these are some of the chemicals. Tobacco producers add these chemicals in order to maintain consistent levels of nicotine in the product. Manufacturers' goals in manipulating nicotine levels are to cause people to become addicted to tobacco products. Tobacco companies require a standard level of nicotine that is difficult to regulate in a natural product. They use these chemical additives and others to maintain the nicotine level at optimal levels. Additives like ammonia increase the amount of nicotine available to the body. Other techniques include blending different tobacco leaves together, changing the cigarette or paper design, and changing the filter. The tobacco company's goals is making a product with a standard amount of nicotine to get them addicted in the lungs and in the brain.
So, you know how cigarettes have their little filter, just like this. So this is a small filter, and this was added just in the 1950s, so that's not even so far away from what we are today. And the cigarette filter was added purposefully when they discovered the tar, which is the term used to describe the toxic chemical residue left behind from burning cigarettes. So the point of the design in this filter was so the filter would filter out all the tar and all the toxics, and it wouldn't go inside your lungs, because this is when people really start going into the health, the health issues that's going on with the cigarettes. So they added the cigarette filter. However, this filter didn't work as the design was planned to, and toxins still get through the filter and into a smoker's lung.
During World War I, cigarette consumption were so high that they called the cigarettes soldier smoke. Some cigarettes, Marlboro. During World War II, tobacco companies used to send millions and millions of cigarettes to soldiers for free, no cost. Cavendish is more of a process of curing method of cutting tobacco than type of it. The processing and the cut are used to bring out natural sweet taste in the tobacco. Cavendish can be produced out of any tobacco type, but usually is one of a blend of Virginia and Burley tobacco, and most commonly used for pipe and cigars.
The origin of white Burley tobacco was created by Mr. Webb in the 1864, who grew it near Higginsport, Ohio. He noticed it yielded a different type of flag-shaded leaf from white to yellow and cured differently.
Bright leaf tobacco is commonly known as Virginia tobacco, regardless where in the world it is harvested. Prior in the American Civil War, most tobacco grown in the USA was fire-cured. Dark leaf. This type of tobacco was planted in fertile lowlands, used a robust variety of leaves, and was either fire-cured or air-cured. Growers had noticed that sandy highland soil produced thinner, weaker plants. So one day, a slave called Stephen, who around 1839 accidentally produced the first bright tobacco. Using this discovery, they developed a system for producing bright tobacco, cultivated on poor soils and using charcoal for heat curing.
In recent years, there is a growing evidence that the tobacco industry has known all along that the cigarettes are harmful, but continue to market and sell them. There is also evidence that they knew that nicotine was addictive, but they used this knowledge to get millions of people hooked on the product. The truth is out there.